There's one vet that published a study and her own opinion and experience with fresh food diets. And basically the conclusion is this: the pet parent is responsible for making this decision. So think about it like this. If your client says, I want to feed a raw fresh food diet, and you say no, the client's probably going to do it anyway. So wouldn't you rather be involved so that you can help the client do it properly and safely? Hey friends, it's Jess Jericho, and the two biggest objections to raw are bacteria and nutritional imbalances. Both are completely understandable and can be dangerous if not done properly, so I completely get it. But with bacteria, this is a risk regardless of the type of food that you feed. For example, if we look back at the past 10 years of pet food recalls, about half of those recalls were due to pathogenic bacteria, and 98% of those recalls were kibble. In just 2021 alone, Midwestern Pet Foods, Meow Mix, Natural Balance, these three manufacturers recalled over 140 lots of dry pet food due to potential salmonella contamination risk. And then there was one raw pet food company, Bravo, that recalled 9 products. So if we just look at last year alone, we can see that kibble was responsible for even more pathogenic bacteria risks compared to raw. Additionally, salmonella outbreaks are often due to poor human hygiene. So a way to get around this hurdle is to explain to people how to properly wash and sanitize when you're preparing food and when you're cleaning the litter box. This is common sense. This is stuff that we should be doing anyway. And at your practice, you already know how to sanitize and wash because you do that every single time you have a new patient come into the room. As for nutritional imbalances, this is another risk that's also involved with commercial kibble and wet canned food. For example, Hill's, the beloved vet-recommended brand, recalled an estimated 10 million pounds of pet food because they had elevated levels of vitamin D, and that was in 2019. So to get over this problem, you can check out the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society. They have conferences that explain how to raw feed, and they also work one-on-one with clients. They're seeing great results. They're not the only vets in the world that are doing this, but that's just one example that you can take a look at. Really, it all comes down to how you source and handle the food. And another note on nutritional adequacy. So I understand that you want to see the analytical proof. You want to see that the diet meets nutritional standards. You want to see that the cats thrive on this diet, and you don't want nutritional deficiencies. Completely understandable. But you have your own clinical feeding trials in your practice. Just take a step back and realize, you have way more patients than the cats that are involved in feeding trials. Just for regular feeding trials, for regular non-therapeutic diets, AAFCO only requires 6 out of 8 cats to pass the feeding trials, and they're only 26 weeks. So take a step back and take a look at your own practice. How many cats do you have in your practice that are eating processed foods? And then how many of those cats have health issues? How many cats are eating a properly balanced fresh food diet? I completely understand that an imbalance of nutrients can cause problems, but how many of those cats are eating properly balanced fresh food diets? And are those cats sick? Did they improve on the fresh food diet? Kind of take your own clinical feeding trials and see what's happening in your own practice. And I'll read a comment that I got for some inspiration. Elizabeth says, I was a veterinary nurse for 14 years, and the feline-only practice I worked at slowly transitioned all of our insulin-dependent diabetic cats into a low-carb, wet food diet, and 97% of these cats went into remission and no longer needed insulin. That's insane. Right there, the numbers speak for themselves. And if you want another example of this, Dr. Elizabeth Hodgkins owns a patent where she talks about high-carbohydrate diets and its effect on diabetes. And she did the same thing in her practice. She transitioned the diabetic cats to a high moisture, high meat-based, low carb diet, and a lot of them improved. In fact, 2 of those cats, one was hers and another was just a practice cat, a clinic cat. She was able to put her diabetic cat into remission. Her cat no longer needed insulin. And then she went away, she went out of town, so she boarded the cat. She explained the cat's diet to the people at the clinic, and unfortunately the clinic started feeding the cat dry food, and guess what? Diabetes returned. So Dr. Hodgkins transitioned to the low carb, high moisture, high meat based diet again, and remission happened again. So Elizabeth goes on, it wasn't easy. A lot of client education, research, and cooperation was needed, but I think the results speak volumes. So many feline disease processes like diabetes, kidney disease, bladder disease, and obesity are directly linked to the deadly dry food. All dry cat foods are too high in carbs and too low in moisture to be species-appropriate food for cats. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for sharing your honesty and for sharing your experience, and I really appreciate that the vets at your clinic took a step back and realized that this dry processed food is causing these problems in the first place. I get other comments from vet students that say that these vet recommended brands are easier because they're already complete in balance. We're familiar with them and they sell them at the hospital. I completely understand, but easier doesn't always mean that it's the best option. Think about it like this. Fast food joints are easy because it's prepared and it's right there and it's fast, and everybody knows about them because they've been around for decades. But how would you survive and thrive eating fast food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day, every single week, for weeks and months and years? You might survive, but you probably wouldn't thrive. So we have to apply that same logic to processed pet foods. There's one vet that published a study and her own opinion and experience with fresh food diets. And basically the conclusion is this: the pet parent is responsible for making this decision. So think about it like this. If your client says, I want to feed a raw fresh food diet, and you say no, the client's probably going to do it anyway. So wouldn't you rather be involved so that you can help the client do it properly and safely? Because obviously you're a vet because you want to help cats thrive, and you also want your clients to trust you. And this vet in the study mentioned that she found that if she's just said no and completely disregarded it, the client would lose trust and, not kind of disregard the information and the advice that the vet gave to the client. And a personal note here, Jericho has been eating raw since 2018, and his vet fully supports my decision in doing that because she knows that I'm educated and that I'm doing it properly. We have a great relationship, and she sees him once a year. We do urinalysis, blood work, fecal, and his fecal always comes back negative for bacteria, parasites, worms, and all of that without the need for medication or dewormers. I make sure that I buy from trustworthy sources and make sure that I handle it properly. The vet states raw diets are effective in the management of some medical problems, especially gastrointestinal dysfunction. They can also resolve inappetence, obesity, and poor hair coat. More than half the cats in the US are overweight or obese, and 82% of us are feeding dry food either exclusively or most of the time. So again, the numbers just speak for themselves. And as you know, obesity brings the risk of so many different types of health issues like diabetes, certain cancers, respiratory issues, and even shortened lives. So if a properly balanced fresh food diet can help resolve obesity, isn't it worth the time investment to learn how to do it properly and educate the client on how to do it safely? This vet also states that raw diets may be more expensive, but nevertheless, solving a problem with diet is better for the pet and cheaper than repeated veterinary visits and expensive medications. So I completely agree with this. There are so many vets out there that are overworked and stressed, and it's completely understandable. You spent half your life learning about all of these different various health issues, and not just for cats and dogs, for horses, cows, pigs, chickens. So it's understandable that you feel overworked and stressed, and because it's difficult. You're trying to do what you're told in school, and stuff it's not working, and maybe some clients are improving, but most of them aren't, and the client doesn't know what to do. Is it the food? Is it this? Is it that? So just imagine if more cat parents educated themselves with your help and fed a properly balanced fresh food diet. The cats stand a much better chance at being healthier, and that would mean fewer vet visits, potentially fewer medications, less stress for the cat, less stress for the parent, less stress for you. You wouldn't be so overworked. You would have healthy cats, and that's what you're in business for, right? So if you're interested in starting raw correctly, check out this playlist right over 𝐤𝐄𝐄. Thank you so much for watching.